Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We've got a very special guest today. Making his first appearance on the podcast is our youngest child, Mr. Lauren Gillette Vogtberg.
Lauren? Did you call him Lauren?
I hope not. I probably did.
You probably said Lawrence and I missed the
No,
C.
I probably... Dang, okay, should I start again?
No, I think we're
I
good.
the first introduction of my son.
No, yeah, so it's kind of funny. We're trying to figure out all kinds of things right now. And one of the biggest ones is when we do the podcast. Okay, that's just one of, maybe a little one. But like usually we can count on the kids' naps being quiet and then when they go to bed.
Yes.
And that's the case, except for that's when Lawrence is awake and typically a little fussy. So I fed him early today just for you guys, which is saying a lot because Lawrence is on a pretty strict schedule.
Yeah. And this is, I think, our first time recording the podcast without the support from a family member being here to watch the other kids too.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a first. We're tackling it, and I think it's going to work.
It is.
The three kiddos are asleep right now. You might hear some construction noise because we do have some contractors over working in our garage on a very exciting project, actually.
Yeah, we've got so much going on.
Yeah,
it's kind of blowing out our ears.
It is, yeah. And in the midst of all this, Katie is potty training Lewis, our year-and-a-half-old.
We've both kind of been potty training Lewis because Elisha's been home. We've had so many appointments. I don't remember having this many appointments with the other kids. That he's needed to be home so I can go to those, and as a result, I don't know. He's doing everything I'm doing. We're juggling all the balls right now, but yeah. I don't know. This will be a good transition week, and hopefully next week we can get more of a flow. Every week we'll get more of a flow.
Yeah, well, this is just, I feel like this is to be expected. At least I feel like we should expect it postpartum. Maybe we said this last week, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, so to speak, but I do feel like the transition from 3 to 4 it's caught me off guard slightly. I think we were a little bit more prepared for this to be more challenging than the other transitions, going from 2 to 3 or from 1 to 2. But still, there have been a few of those moments where you're like, wow, like our house is kind of a zoo right now, or like this is a circus right now.
Well, I think part of that is because you are still home.
That's true.
So you're experiencing the circus more front and center.
Sure.
Where I think the past kids, you've been at work at this point.
That's yes, you're right.
And so I'm kind of like, oh, it's a zoo, but then we can kind of get things together when you come home.
Sure.
And you give me a break.
That's right.
And now it's just kind of like no one's really getting a break because we're all
That's a good point. Yes, that's probably contributed a lot to me feeling that way more with this one. It's been a total joy. Like I've never felt so blessed in my life to have these 4 healthy children, a healthy, beautiful wife who, I don't know if some of you knew that she injured her tailbone just before going into labor with Lawrence, but that's healing up nicely, and so she's feeling better with that. And overall, we feel really grateful and blessed with how things are going.
Oh yeah, and we're only 2 weeks in.
Yep.
So
2 weeks into this postpartum season.
Yeah.
So all that said, I guess that was kind of catching some of you up to date.
I don't know, we're just like...
Yes, we pressed record and just started talking there.
We need someone to talk to about this.
Yeah, I know, exactly. We were just starting to process. But today's episode, we're going to jump around to a few topics, but it is kind of interesting and oftentimes insightful to see what people's assumptions are of us as a family or as a couple or as Katie or of Katie as an individual. We're mostly going to be answering the assumptions or responding to the assumptions that are directed towards us as a family. Because I think Katie kind of answers some of the other ones, more over on your Instagram or on your YouTube channel. So I'm excited to dig in, and the topics vary. Some of them are kind of lighthearted and silly, where some of them I think have more severe implications. And so buckle up.
Here we go.
Here we go. So I'm going to start with the first one that we circled here, and this assumption says you were engaged for less than a year before getting married. That's a very accurate assumption.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, we were engaged for what, all of 2.5 months? Is that what it was?
2.5 months. And it's so funny looking back because that's just kind of my dad's and my personality. is just, okay, well, once you're engaged, then just why don't you get married? And the way, if you guys haven't listened to our love story, I'll link our love story in the show notes.
Cool.
Elisha and I didn't think we were anywhere close to getting my dad's blessing to get married.
Yes.
And then it was like overnight. It was literally overnight. We thought he was calling you to like tell you he never wanted to see you again.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
Well, yeah, I had made some, there was some drama that had occurred that led to me expecting a phone call from Katie's dad, expecting to hear him say, good riddance, and I'll never, don't even set foot on the same continent as my daughter ever again. And so when he called me, I was fully expecting that. But instead, he says, I've been praying a lot about, what transpired. I do think you've been forthright since then. I think there's been a break there's trust has been broken, but that can be rebuilt. And when it's all said and done, I just trust you as a person. I trust you potentially raising my grandchildren. I trust you now with my children, with my young children. So I don't see why you wouldn't, if you and Katie want to get married, why you wouldn't just do that. And this came out of just left field. This was not expected at all. And so of course I was not going to be like, oh no, that's not a good idea. I was like, that's a great idea. Like I got him on a good day. So let's just go with this right now. And so I was like, okay, I'm all for that. And he goes, okay, well, when do you, and I was in Central Oregon at this time and Katie was in Southern California. And he said, so how soon do you think you could like set up a proposal? And I was like, probably tomorrow or the next day. I just have to get a shift covered at work. And so that's kind of how the proposal transpired anyways.
Yeah. And then we were walking on the beach. I remember my dad and I were walking on the beach and we were talking about the wedding and he was like, okay, well, I'm thinking maybe May would be a good time because he has all these appointments and this was like the one weekend we could do it, or we had to wait till October. And so I was like, sweet, okay. And then I called Elisha and was like, oh, we can get married in May. And this was end of February.
Yeah.
March, April, yeah. And Elisha just like,
yeah, it's funny.
freaked out.
It's so funny because Katie and I, we knew we wanted to marry each other, but we did not know each other that well. Like
Yeah.
we trusted each other. We had a ton of admiration for the other person. And so it's funny looking at the story in retrospect and seeing some of my character traits, how they played out and how some of Katie's character traits played out. Because I was so scared to say like, no, I don't want to get married that soon. Because I was like, I just want to get married. So if it means in 2 or 2.5 months, then yes, let's do that. But if it were up to me, I wanted a lot more time to kind of situate us, to find a place to live, to save some money, to get my career more established. I was starting in real estate at that point. And so those were things that I was kind of hoping for, but at the same time, not to the extent of, I was like, okay, well, if this is my option, then yes, I'll take the option that I have because I just want to marry you.
Anyways, it's just funny looking back and knowing Elisha so much better now and him knowing me so much better. And we're like, that's just so funny. Like, I feel bad I stressed him out so much, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, but at the same time, I think there was a good chance we would have broken up if our engagement had been longer. So I think the Lord knows it'll work out.
Yes, I'm so grateful. The Lord's just grace and mercy is so evident in our relationship. Obviously, His grace is the most because of the gospel, but we see it really practically also in our relationship. Okay, another assumption. I'm just going to read all these because Katie's holding Lawrence and I'm holding the phone. So I'm going to read all of these. This assumption says, you never doubt your faith. And that is incorrect. That's an incorrect assumption. And maybe that's a surprise to a lot of you, but I think there are elements of our faith that I bring into question, I wouldn't say on a regular basis, but enough so that I'm never surprised when I have doubt. And if anything, I think that, doubt's not the lack of faith. I should say, doubt's not the opposite of faith. Unbelief is the opposite of faith. And if anything, doubt is evidence that you have faith because you're doubting the thing that you currently believe in. And so every time I have doubt, I'm always grateful that it's evidence that I have a faith, that I truly believe it. And I want to, do all I can to do away with that doubt, to strengthen my faith. And, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. And so when I go to God's word in those times of doubt, he is always so faithful just to speak to me through his word, his inspired word, and to bring, I guess, more comfort and security and faith to those aspects. And, aspects that are currently questioned today so often is, was Jesus God? And I'll think, well, of course he was God. But then people will say, well, that's just, the tradition you've been brought up in. I said, no, I'm pretty sure it says that in the Bible many times. And then people, will say, well, no, Jesus that never calls himself God. These are things that get thrown out there all the time. And I think, does he not say that? So I go through the Gospels again. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Like this, if anything, I just grew my faith exponentially because I was challenged in that one area. I had that doubt. So I went to the scripture looking for answers regarding that certain subject. I'm like, oh my word, Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He is the only way to God the Father. And that is explicitly declared in the scriptures. And so, I'm just talking way too much here. The answer to your question is that yes, we doubt our faith or various aspects of our faith from time to time. If we look older, all of a sudden, it's because we had to take a little break there.
Yeah. I had to take a little Lawrence break.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's down for a nap. That's what it sounds like.
Yes. Got him fed, got him down. I mean, what more could you want, really?
As a baby?
As anybody, as a human being, be having a full belly and be able to lay down in a bed.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good. Oh, on the last topic, were you going to say
I think
something?
I was done. Yeah, I know it's kind of chopped up here, but yeah.
Welcome to our lives.
Yes, our lives are a bit choppy right now. So what were you going to say regarding the faith one?
You have a little, hold on real quick, hold on. You have a little fluffy on your face. Okay, so what I was going to say is, yeah, I feel that way too. I don't know if I would say, oh, I've doubted my faith.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, I would say, oh, I haven't. But like when you mentioned having your faith challenged,
mm-hmm.
I have felt that way.
Sure.
So it's probably the same thing.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, doubt might be, maybe that's a stronger word. Maybe question. I've questioned my faith numerous times.
Yeah, and there's not in its entirety, but aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So like I had someone message me and say, well, I think that we're both Christians, we take the Bible differently because you seem to think that it's this person was saying that the way that I recite verses are like, this is proven evidence that God means this. And this person was saying it's open for interpretation because it was written by men, because God used men to write the Bible, therefore it has errors in it. And I was like, whoa, like I think I've always believed that this is the final word and God's preserved his word throughout the generations. And remember I brought that to you.
Oh yeah. And
that kind of led me on this study of like, is the Bible inerrant? Is it infallible? Mm-hmm. And has it been preserved? Mm-hmm. And so that was really strengthening for my faith. And I think I definitely had that moment of it being challenged and being like, okay, I've always believed this, but I don't actually know what verses back that up or what history backs this up. Yeah. And that actually led me to find Verity, which is an awesome podcast. I mentioned it before. But if you're feeling those doubts as far as like how we got the canon for the Bible, or like, I don't know, why are certain books in the Bible and certain historical books out of the Bible, Verity is a really awesome podcast. It's by Felicia Masonheimer, and I think you'll really like what she has to say about it.
Yeah, that's so good, Katie. Again, you could just talk about this topic for hours and hours and hours, the different aspects of our faith. But I will just say one thing before we move on to the next assumption, and that is, I don't want whatever the doubt or the fear or the question that I have, I don't want to fuel that unnecessarily. In other words, there is so much information out there and we have to choose what we're going to consume. And so I want the ratio to always be far, on the side of filling my mind and my soul and my emotions with God's word and his truth, and being aware of the questions that are out there, being aware of the challenges that people are presenting to our faith, or questions that they're presenting for our faith. But unless you feel like you've got these things that constantly keep arising, don't go out. Like, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. And if you want your faith to grow, then feed yourself the word of God. And that'll be what equips you for those when the challenges do come and when the questions do arise. And I think on the flip side, if you go out there and look for questions, that's not strengthening your faith. I think feeding yourself God's word is what strengthens your faith. And when those questions do come, which are inevitable, then you fall on God's word, you address those questions. And does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's really good. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Because I'm so guilty to going on rabbit trails that are really not that edifying or building up of my faith.
That's good. Okay, so here's one, and it said that we come from affluent families. So I could see how that would be perceived, because as of this moment, both Elisha's parents and my parents are what you would call affluent. I would call them affluent.
Yeah, I mean, that term, and I don't even know how to define that term, because
there's always someone with more money.
Well, also just based off of the world and the history of the world, like, we are by far affluent. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true. Like living in America makes you affluent compared to the rest of the world.
The 21st century in America is an affluent position to be in.
Yes. I think in terms of, like, I'm just thinking generally of maybe what this person is asking. I would say yes.
Sure. That you were raised in an affluent?
No. I'm saying that I would consider our parents affluent now.
Gotcha.
I would consider myself affluent if I was in either of our parents' position. Okay, so that is subjective, like Elisha's saying. Right. So it might not be compared to what you have in mind. But that said, both our parents are entrepreneurial. Their paths have been very up and down. And my parents for sure started off completely broke. Like, completely broke.
Yep.
And when I was like 6 or 7 years old, they're really open with their story. They were completely head over heels in debt, and really had to work their way out of that debt hole. And I was 7 when we moved into a fifth wheel on a friend's property, and there were 6 of us at the time, 6 of us kids. We lived in a fifth wheel and an army tent. And my parents, this is something I love about them, they weren't worried about keeping up with the Joneses. Mm-hmm. And they never have been materialistic. Mm-hmm. Neither of our families are materialistic at all. I think what our parents have spent their money on is like experiences and raising a bunch of kids. So it hasn't been on like what you might expect someone to spend their money on. Maybe here in America, it's been very non-materialistic, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, that said, with the whole trailer, we lived there for 2 years, and my parents were able to pay down all that debt, and we were able to get a down payment on a house. And it was just, I don't know, I just really respect my parents' story, and it's been something that I've aspired to, is just to not worry about like what other people think, and just do what's best for your family and your situation. It's never been about money.
Yeah.
And I always felt that we were so rich as a kid because my dad made everything fun. Right. And I never knew that we were struggling financially for most of my childhood until I was an adult. And then looking back, I was like, oh, that's why you guys are making those decisions.
Yeah. I feel like maybe my childhood wasn't affluent, maybe my parents weren't affluent, but I do feel like the most privileged person ever with the experience that I had growing up. Because I had just an abundantly loving family and supportive family, and never once did I question whether or not I was going to have clothes on my back and a meal to eat and a roof over my head. So that, to me, that's such a blessing. I forget what it might have been like a Malcolm Gladwell book, one of his books, where he talked about like there's some social science study that determined, this was back maybe like 10 or 15 years ago, that the perfect whatever, I'm butchering this, so if you know the reference, you can maybe correct me on it.
I
but
don't
I'm
think he
gonna,
even started till he
yeah,
was
I know.
10.
But in one of his books, Tipping Point or Blink, well, I can't remember which one it was, that somebody decided that based off of, social research, that like $80,000 a year was the best income for like the ultimate happiness, basically. Like families that hit that level didn't feel the financial pressure, but then they also didn't, but when you got more than that, you saw families like basically creating more problems with their money, or a lot of times children not getting the experience of like going and getting their first job, or of having to pay, save up money to buy, their first bike, that actually brings more joy into homes. The point that I'm saying is that whether or not it's $80,000 or whatever it was, I feel like I was in that sweet spot as a child of never feeling like we were gonna go broke, that we were gonna be without, but I had to go create work for anything extra that I wanted. And so from the time I was, I guess probably 9 years old on, I was entrepreneurial, and so for my own clothes or books or, instruments or my first car or paying for college, we just paid for that ourselves. And that wasn't, I never felt poor because of that. I felt like it just gave me more opportunity from the experience.
Yeah, I would say that like on a practical scale, like my parents bought necessities, and then when it came to clothes or extra shoes, or like we all bought our own cars as well, it was just, I don't know, we bought our own stuff.
Yeah.
And something that I think both our parents did though, that we could relate with, is they provided us with awesome experiences.
Yes, and that's
they
where
would be like, okay, we're going on a family trip, we're paying, or those like experiences. So I feel like I bought the more materialistic things in my life.
Yes.
And my parents provided these like awesome memories and
same. And also like the property that I grew up on, our house was big, but it wasn't luxurious. It wasn't like fancy finishes, but it was very comfortable, and it was like the coolest property ever. We lived out in the country. That's such a, I don't know. I feel like we haven't really answered the question.
I think people can feel like we're talking about money, but I would say this. I think I would consider our families affluent at this point. They've worked really, really hard. They're both very, very generous, but it hasn't always been that way.
Yeah.
We always felt cared for and provided for as kids, but it hasn't always been that way.
Yeah.
And I think that it's given us a good, we always felt secure and taken care of, but I think Elisha and I have always known the value of money and work.
Yeah. And there was a crisis at one point in my childhood too. I'm sure there was multiple in my financial crisis in our family when I was 10. So from the time I was, or 9, from the time I was 9 to 12, the industry that my dad was in took a big hit. And so he kind of had to recreate himself, when I was 9 years old. So he would have been in his early 40s. And so he went and got a job at a log mill, at a log yard, operating equipment, and his income went down substantially. So there was about a 2.5 to almost 3 year period where, yes, we got to still live in the same house, but I can remember things got really tight. We weren't able to go on the trips that we could have before. We didn't have some of the extra things in our home that we had before. And my dad spent 3 years, kind of restructuring his businesses and getting back on his feet. And so that was a part of our history too, which I feel like is inevitable when you've got an entrepreneurial.
Well, that's what I mean.
Family.
It's been very up and down.
Yes.
Like there have been fat years, there have been very slim years.
Yes.
So, anyways, I think I'd like to say this because my mom really inspires me. Well, my dad and my mom inspire me. But if you have watched any of her Q&As on YouTube, then you'll hear more of like my parents' early married years and just like the way she supported my dad through a lot of like really hard years. And I think that just inspires me. Okay, so you never argue in front of the kids.
Well, I think we do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
That is a false assumption. We
Yes.
do argue in front of our children.
Yeah, hopefully we save the juicy ones for our private arguments. But yeah, petty and actually sometimes serious arguments probably happen in front of the kiddos, whether it's at the dinner table or in the car, like when we're traveling. I feel like we've had some good arguments with their audience.
Yeah, I think that this is actually something that's really healthy. If it's a good, healthy argument, we're just disagreeing, we have different opinions, and it's not like a fight or something explosive. I don't know, I saw my parents argue growing up, and I saw them resolve conflict growing up, and I think I learned a lot from that. And so there were definitely times when my parents would be like, okay, this is too much, or we're going in the other room to figure this out. And I think Elisha and I hopefully have that perspective in front of our kids. But I do think it's also healthy for them to just see, oh, daddy and mama love each other. They can totally disagree, and then things are fine again.
Yeah, I do remember too, my parents, having arguments, but then always finding so much comfort when they would let us all know that they resolved, that they love each other. Because that can be stressful as a kid when you're not fully understanding what's going on. And I think even, our 4-year-old and Lucifer, you can see them get uncomfortable sometimes when we are in an argument, and it brings them so much comfort when, Katie and I hug and we're like, oh no, we love, mommy loves daddy, daddy loves mommy, and you see them like kind of relax again and take comfort in that.
Yeah, I would say it's on bigger disagreements. If I start crying.
Yes.
If I start crying, then that's when I think they both are like, what's going on? And then Elisha and I were like, no, we're good. Daddy and mama love each other. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, but that's a rare occurrence.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably just continue to learn and grow regarding that. And what to have them be in on and what to have them not be in on.
Yeah, that's a learning curve. Okay, this actually goes along with it. This is a different assumption. It says you guys never fight, maybe argue or disagree, but not fight.
It has been a while since we've had a good fight. I'd say like a good heated argument or a verbal, I guess, fight.
Yeah, I'd say we probably fought like 4 times in our marriage. There's 4 times that stand out in my brain where I've been like, that was probably unhealthy.
Yeah, like that was, exactly.
When I think fight, I think this is unhealthy.
Like sinful.
Yeah, like
across
you're
the line.
Maybe attacking the other person's character.
Right,
you
low blows.
Say something you really regret.
Yeah, you attack their character, maybe things like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, 4 times. Yeah, I haven't calculated them, but I can think of the one, I think in Bend, we did it once at the apartment.
When I left the apartment?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, so I'm glad you said it.
Hey, it took a lot for me to leave the apartment.
You got in the car and drove away.
I got in the car and left.
And the other was when we were in Centralia, and you got out of the car. You made me pull over.
These are so embarrassing. You guys, these are like ultimate immature fights. You're right. I got out of the car. It was like pouring down rain.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. This was like such a dramatic, immature moment. Also, we know like everybody in this town. So I wouldn't be surprised if some people who maybe even listen to this like saw me marching in the rain and Elisha like driving with all the kids in the car. Trying to get me back in.
I can't really think of the other ones.
Cabo.
Oh.
Cabo.
That was.
And there was one more in that apartment in our townhome.
Was there?
There was one more time.
I couldn't remember if those were 2 different ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was different.
Okay, yeah, I think I can remember all those.
Yeah. So those are all times where you like regret it and we're like, that was not healthy.
Yeah.
We do not want that to happen again.
Yeah.
It's been a really long time though.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, over a year.
You're right. So far in our new home, that hasn't happened, and so.
Yeah. I mean, we hope we're maturing and growing, but if you've ever fought, it doesn't mean you have a terrible marriage.
Yeah, we definitely. It's not healthy, I think, to have those, and so you want to grow through them and realize, hey, this doesn't need to become a fight. Let's talk about this right now and have there be multiple arguments, maybe, but not a fight. Until so that we can come to agreement or we can see it from each other's perspective or whatever.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say those are indicative of our marriage.
No.
But they have happened.
Yes.
Okay, here's another assumption. Y'all are debt-free.
Nope, we're not.
I like that you guys think we're debt-free, but we couldn't buy this house without a loan.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a home loan, and then we still owe a little bit on our car, I think.
We do. Yeah, so you and I had always paid cash for cars until this car. And I'm really glad we didn't. We were trying to build our credit to be able to actually get a home loan because neither of us had any credit. We hadn't used any credit cards growing up, really, and so we had to build our credit after we got married, and that was hard.
It's so funny. Katie and I, we've had some really fun wins entrepreneurially over the last 5 years, and we've started a handful of things, and we've enjoyed it tremendously. But we feel like such infants and newbies when it comes to like home loans or credit, and like it was such a foreign world to us. Maybe like finance, I guess. Like we just didn't understand that world, and we had gone in a couple times trying to get a home loan. And we didn't realize that like your entrepreneurial income or like your self-employed income, it like works against you. It doesn't matter. It's like the more money you make, the less credit you get for it.
That's
what it felt like though. and so it actually took me having to get like a job, like a W-2 job, and then building up our credit. Like we had like a roadmap. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
we need to get the credit to here.
We needed a secured credit card. I could not buy windshield wipers on credit. And I was like, how are we going to do this? Like, we can't even buy anything on credit to build our credit.
Yeah.
And so then we figured out, oh, there's such a thing as a secured credit card. So
Yeah.
we did that for a while. Anyways, well, like, I think this goes with kind of like what our parents taught us
Yeah.
around money.
Yes.
It was like, don't go into debt. Like, both our parents had credit cards, but it was kind of like this. Did your dad?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But they like pay them off and like.
Yeah, you only spend money that you have.
Yes,
You know, like
you only
that's-
spend money that you have, and the easiest way to do that is to pay cash or debit.
Right, exactly.
So Elisha and I both had that mindset coming into marriage, and we had to get debt in order to. I don't know. I mean, we weren't gonna like have hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash all at once at our age and stage.
Yeah.
So yeah, we aren't debt free. I don't know if that's actually a desire of mine or not, to be honest. Okay, you speak more than one language. Elisha.
Negative. No, I was homeschooled growing up, and we had my uncle is from Switzerland. He's Swiss, and he taught our family French for 1 year. And that
speak
was
your
like,
French.
I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, it
No,
sounds
I'm
so
not
good.
going to.
Elisha does this when he's like seducing.
Yeah, I try whenever I'm trying to, get lucky, I put on my French man, and it always works. But also, I'm not even saying real words. And
Elisha's.
I'm making that up. No, I always make stuff up. So we did French for a year, and then my sister dated a Spanish teacher for a year or so.
I feel like you're really pulling at shoestrings here to.
Well, no, I'm just telling you, that's like the extent of my language abilities is a year of French that I don't remember anything from. I think I was 9 or 10, and then a year of like Spanish lessons, and that's it.
I have nothing.
You got nothing?
No, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know any of those things. Also, yeah, I don't. One of the questions on here was like, oh, you guys have wanderlust. And maybe Elisha does, but like I don't want to leave the country again, so I'm not really motivated to learn another language because I feel like everyone who comes here learns English. I feel like other countries are like smarter than Americans, sometimes not Americans, smarter than,
Like,
I don't know, here in
US citizens?
America,
Yeah.
yeah, US citizens. Like if you're just born here, everyone learns your language
yeah.
when they come here. And then like you hear about these Europeans, and some of you Europeans know like 4 languages because all the countries are like close together.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just in awe. Okay. We just have 2 more.
Okay.
You don't drink alcohol.
Are you going to answer that? Or am I? Whoa.
I showed you these before.
Yeah, I know, but when you say it out loud like that, it's so like, I don't know. So yeah, Katie and I we had a glass of wine this week.
Yeah,
We did. But it's like an occasion. It's definitely
It's a special occasion.
It's a special treat for us. Yeah.
Thing.
And so yeah, we enjoy a glass of wine when just as a special occasion.
It's okay. You don't have to like.
Yeah, I enjoy a beer. If we're going out to dinner and it's like at a brewery, or if there's the whole, like there's the local brewery, like I'll get a beer for sure.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, so when I got married, we've talked about this before, but Elisha promised me that he would not drink alcohol at all. I grew up in a family that didn't drink alcohol at all. And I just was very uncomfortable with it. And so I just didn't want him to. And I think once I saw like he was willing to do that for me and it didn't have this like hold in his life, then I was a lot more comfortable with you drinking, having a drink here and there. And I think by sipping on your wine, I realized, oh, I actually really like wine.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's just kind of like where we're at right now. It's something we hold loosely.
Yeah, we like don't have it. We don't have our house stocked with, you know, we don't have beer in the fridge or wine in the cupboard.
I don't like alcoholic beverages in the house.
Like in the home, it's not a part of the grocery list. We're not gonna like hide it from our children. But we also don't want our kids just thinking like, oh, mommy and daddy, you know, have a glass of wine every night. We don't, because that's not the truth. You know what I mean? That's not the case. And
yeah, we want to keep it as something that's just like a special occasion thing, not a big part of our lives.
Yes, and we believe drunkenness is a sin, and so drunkenness, yeah, just to clarify, that is a sin.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to say like it's bad if you do keep your house stocked with drinks or whatever. You know, everyone has to come to their own.
I'm stoked when we go over to visit people and they keep their house stocked with drinks and they offer them. Like,
he probably would if I was comfortable with it.
You know, one time I think Katie actually, this was crazy. This was like Katie's, maybe I've shared this before, so it might be redundant, but Katie was, you know, very strongly against any alcohol, and so I agreed to not drink for the first year of our marriage, anything. And but before our first 1 year anniversary, Katie bought me for my birthday a really nice bottle of scotch. And so that was like her saying like, okay, you know, I trust you, like, yeah. So that was really sweet.
He cried when he got it. It was so worth it.
Well, just because of like, not because, oh, I'm crying because I've got this whiskey in my house. It's like, it's
no.
like, it was because of like the sentiment for sure.
Yeah, it was like me trusting you and
Yeah.
wanting you to be able to enjoy something that you have enjoyed in the past. It's kind of a funny story though. So I'd never been in a liquor store before. And I went in and I had asked my uncle what kind, like I knew nothing about alcohol. I still don't know anything. And so I went and I had asked my uncle like what this specific kind of like Lagavulin, right? There's the scotch and it was a certain year. So I had like all my little stats. And I went into the liquor store and I asked the guy specifically for this exact bottle of scotch. And I think he thought I knew what I was talking about because we went over to this like Lagavulin section and there were different years there. And I was like, nope, like I don't want any of these. I want this exact, like it was 12 years or something. I don't want the 16-year one. And when I went to check out, he didn't card me.
Yeah.
At all. And I just thought it was funny because I was like all prepared. I'd never been carded before in my life. And then I left the store and I was like, I just went to a liquor store and I didn't have to pull out my ID.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's so that's our alcohol story for the episode.
There you go.
Man.
Random. Anyways, yeah. It's not a big part of our life, but it's not a part of our life either. You guys miss living near family.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's one of those things where we don't regret where we live and we don't regret moving away from family because we love this town, we love what it's offered us and provided for us, but we do miss the aspect of family and the other places that we are living.
Yeah, I think something that has actually been a blessing though of moving away from family is when our family comes and visits, we get that quality time with whoever's there.
Yes.
And that has meant a lot to me.
Me too.
Because I feel like we saw Elisha's parents so much when we were living on the property with them, and I loved that experience. But like when your parents come and stay in our town and it's just our kids and just our conversation, you know, there's not like 5 other siblings there, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just really special. And I feel that way about your siblings that have come and visited and my siblings and my parents. It's a really special, unique thing to have that quality time when you're used to being around a huge family all the time. So it's been a blessing, even though, yeah, I would love to just have family down the street and be able to pop in and pop out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
That is it. So there's the assumptions for you guys.
Thank you for having assumptions.
Yeah.
That was fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can just wrap things up.
I know. I
Yeah,
feel
thanks.
like, what do you say now?
Yeah, what do you say now? Yeah, we'll fill you in on everything else that's happening in our life next week. That's how we'll wrap things up. You guys, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.